Hey guys, Mike teaches programming here, and welcome to part 2 of our OpenAPI series. In today's episode, we're going to look at the YAML file, and we're going to create a simple GET request that will return a list of objects. If you haven't watched part 1, please do. Link is in the description to that video. It brings you through the whole setup of this project and how it generates the interfaces and the different controllers based on this file. But if you just want to see how the file is created, how you create your different endpoints and responses, just continue watching and we will start. So basically, the first thing I do whenever I start one of these YAML files is go to the following URL, editor.swagger.io. So basically, on the left-hand side is where you create your file, and on the right-hand side is a visual representation of it at runtime. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is, let's just jump right into it. So the first thing is OpenAPI, and the version is 3.0.0. So it's OpenAPI version 3. You can see here on the right hand side, it's giving you structural errors saying you're missing info and paths. So let's add them in right now. So let's add in info. And we can add in a version tag. So you can get the full list of tags on the documentation for OpenAPI, but these are pretty much the most important ones anyway. So title, again, we're going to do a library service. Easy to do. And you can see as I'm adding in the different key value pairs on the left, they're also added in on the right in a kind of visual format too. Okay, and you can also add in a description. So this, if you want to go to a new line in this YAML file, just do that, and then you can go, this is a description. And I think that adds in a new line, so hello. No, it doesn't. Okay, so I'm not too sure how to do that. Anyways, let's move past it. So that's it for the top kind of info key value pairs. The second one we do is servers. So servers can contain a list, and inside that list you want to put a URL. So the URL is basically where can your customers get your API at. So it's HTTPS, I think. And then we go localhost 8080 / whatever. I'm just gonna leave it blank for now, and they can also add in a description. This is where my API is. Okay, so could not render, see the console. Okay, so if that happens, just give the page a little refresh and it does appear eventually. Okay. Next thing we do is we're going to add in tags. Now, what are tags? Tags are basically headers for your different APIs. Okay, so in a library, you'll have, if you were to think of a library as an object, you would have a lot of books, and you would also have users. Okay, so there's two headers we could create right now. So we just give it a name, and the name of the first one is going to be books. So you can see there when I typed in book as a tag, it gave me this little drop down. So of course there's no API. So all the APIs related to the books will go underneath this tag, and all of the APIs for, let's say, users will go under the users tag. So we have books and users. Okay. Next thing we can do is we can add our first endpoint. So all of the endpoints go underneath paths. So if you want different endpoints, you just create all of your different endpoints underneath paths. So what we're going to do is we're going to create one endpoint, and it's going to return a list of books. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is define the path. So / books. Okay, and then underneath that, tab inside, and it's going to be a get. Okay, so you can see here, if I go right here, it's given a default tag because we haven't tagged this yet. Okay, So you can see here I have a get, and it's a get on /books. So let's just give it a summary. Summary is this gets all books, and we can give it a detailed description. This is a detailed description. Okay. And what we can also do is, I don't like the way it's sitting out here, so what we can do now is, actually we need to indent that. Okay, and then it appears. What we can then do is tag it, so add the tags with it. So you can give it multiple tags, or you can just give it the one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it the books tag. So now you can see that it's moved from the default tag name and it's moved underneath books. So underneath books, we have one endpoint at /books. So if you were to go to localhost 8080 /books, this method is what you would receive. So let's go. The next one is operation ID. Now the operation ID is the method name in your kind of code or Java code. So if I was to add get all books in library, excuse me, you can see here that it doesn't really have any effect on the visual representation of our file, but we keep it in your mind, and I will show you where it's used later on. Next thing then is we move into the responses. Now for this, we're going to have 3 responses, okay? So let's just do them right now. 200 for an OK. We're going to have 400 for a bad request. And we're going to have a 401 if you're unauthorized. So pretty much for now, for the kind of error responses, we are going to just give them a description. So this here is unauth. For 400, we're going to give it a description, and we're going to give it bad request. And we move along to our OK. So this is where everything was okay in the back end. There was no errors. We're going to return you the list of all the books in the library. So let's see how we can do that. So we give it the description tag. So this means it's okay. Then we go content. So just follow along with me for now. I'll explain that after. Application /JSON. Underneath that is schema. Type is an array. And items is $reference to. And we will leave that blank for now. So let's have a look. So in the case that it's okay, we have a description. Then we have what we return. So this really means what object we are returning. So we are returning JSON format, and it's going to be an array of the item type this. So we're not pointing to any object at the minute. That's because we haven't created the book object. So again, if you have a look here at our underneath books tag, because we marked it or we tagged it as a book API, you can see here that we have 3 responses: the 200, the 400, and the 401. Basically, our return value is null because we don't have our model defined yet. So how do we define that model? It's pretty simple. Go to the very first line, not the first line, outdent to the start of the file, and type in components, schemas, and underneath schemas is where you type or you create all of your objects. So let's type book. So we want to create a book object. First thing we do is we give it a description. This is the book object, and we give it a type, and its type is going to be an object. The next file or key it has is parameters or properties. Sorry, properties. So Underneath properties is where you define all of your different properties for this book. So if you were to think of it as a Java class, you would have book has, let's say, a string name and a string name of an author. Okay, so let's give it the same thing. So we give it a name and we also give it an author. So you see we get errors there, and it's because we need to give them, I always like to give them a description, so the name of the book, and we need to give it a type. So every property has its name, the description, and the type. So again, properties has name, then we give it a description, so the author, and the type. So the two types of these are going to be string. So just type in string there, and string. And you can see here, underneath schemas, it generates our book class, which has a name and an author. So the next thing we need to do is fill in, basically up here, just type in book, and it will automatically fill in for you. And you can see here, when we get a 200, it will return an array list of objects of books. And that's pretty much it. So let's go over this one more time. We have our, make sure you start off with OpenAPI 3.0.0 or OpenAPI 3. We have our info. So we have version, which is marked here. We have title, and we have the description. We have our server where the API is, okay? And we have our two tags or headings. So all of the APIs related to books will go under the tag books, and all the APIs underneath users will go underneath users. So we've created one endpoint at /books. We've marked it with the tag books, so it's underneath this, okay? So the operation ID, just keep that in your mind for now. The summary, kind of a one-line description of what the API does. Then you can give them a more detailed description by using this tag. Then we give it 3 responses, 200, array list of items, 400, and 401. So again, you can, oh, and sorry, one last thing, we have the schemas, the book, and we have the name and author being its properties and the description here. So again, you can have a look at the OpenAPI website. I'll link it in the description, and you can look at all the different types of tags. This is kind of the most simple request you can do, and you can give it all these different properties, but this is basically the simplest one that we can do for now, okay? In our next video, in part 3, I'm going to be doing a post request, so where we send in the schema, and for part 4, we're going to be looking at path parameters, and maybe part 5, we'll look into different, different types of keys that we can use in OpenAPI that will make it a bit more complex. But for now, it's pretty simple. So what we do is copy that file, go into your YAML file. So I'll show you where this YAML file is. It's right here in resources under the test project API module. Again, watch episode 1 if you are following along with me. If you're not, just paste it in where you have your YAML file defined. So what we can do then is we'll run maven clean install. Okay, so what that's going to do is it's going to create all of our controllers and our interfaces. So it's going to create one controller, and it's going to create no, sorry, not controller. It's going to create one interface, and it's going to create one model, because we've only defined one model. So underneath target, generated sources, let me mark directory as sources root, Java.com example. So we have API and models. Underneath models, we have our book class, and as we give it 2 properties, name and author. And for our API, we have books API. So at /books, we have a get mapping. Ooh, it marks it somewhere. Request mapping value method request method dot get. Sorry. And that is our interface. You can see that it returns a list of books, and it's a get method. You can see here also the three different responses that can occur within our method. So let's implement that. So let's go minimize our API, and we'll open our business logic. So all the way down here, I have a controllers package. So no controllers yet. I'm going to create one. I'm going to call it book controller and mark it as a REST controller. And it's going to implement our books API. So that complains because we don't have the method. Implement the method, and we are good to go. So you can, let's return a new response entity actually. Okay, yeah, so let's do that. New response entity, and inside here we're going to return a new array list. Can we do that? And then we're going to return HTTP status. Okay. So obviously, if this was your real application, you would put in some logic before to get your books from the database and then just return it. If it was a real library application, you would probably add filters to limit how much you would send back, because you don't want to send back hundreds, thousands of books, because it potentially could crash your system or the client system. So yeah, we'll look into filters later on, but for now, let's just give this a little spin up. So let's go to test project application. Again, if you have any issues with running this, or your YAML file isn't working as expected, just put it in the comments and let me know, and I will get around to sorting it out. So let's bring up Postman, or you can use a browser if you want to. So here is my browser, and let's go to localhost/8080, and we put it at books, and it should just return an empty array. And you can see that, oh, maybe it doesn't log anything there. Let's just hit it again, see if it logs. No, it doesn't. So yeah, but you can see that we're getting an empty array at books. So if we were to add in more books there, we would see different data. But for now, we can leave it as it is. Actually, let's just do that. Why not? So we can do list of books is equal to new array list. Let's add one book. So books.add new book. Okay, and we'll return here, just so you can see this. Return books. Put in a semicolon up here. Stop it and rerun it. So once that's up, it's not going to have any data, but it will give us our key. So we should be able to see name and author. So yeah, you can see name and author, one book. We just haven't defined the actual value for it. So that's pretty much it for this episode. Hopefully it went into a bit more detail and it went over everything in the most simplest of forms. Again, you can look at the documentation to see, play around with different key values in the values in the YAML file. Any questions, let me know. If you did like this video, please give it a like. Subscribe if you want to see part 3. In part 3, again, we'll be going over the post and how to send up data to your system to store in the DB. And then part 4, we'll be looking at the request parameters, so actually passing up data or getting a book by ID. So yeah, thanks for that, and hopefully see you in the next video. Bye.